They say that it's the most traumatic moments in our lives that have the most to teach us. I know that's true because I've experienced it myself. And yes, I'm talking about the time I lost my cell phone. Just to say, I'm going to do that again. That's a funny line. A lot of you laughed, but some of you I noticed, Professor Sawyer, for example, didn't. And so we can do it again. I'm going to start again. This time, when you hear that line, I want you to, really, really laugh. Like it's possibly the funniest. That means you, Johnny, okay? Like it's the funniest thing you've heard this morning. And it probably isn't. But anyway, here we go. Let me get into it. They say it's the most traumatic moments in our lives that have the most to teach us. I know that to be true. And yes, I'm talking about the time I lost my cell phone. In Sweden. I was going for a conference. I was only going for a couple of days. And I decided not to bring my laptop. It's just a few days, I said to my wife. What could happen? That turned out to be a strategic error. 9.5 hours later, there I was in Stockholm. I was a little jet-lagged. My hair was not great. But my hair is never great. Most of all, I felt free. I had a backpack, and that was it. This is awesome, I thought. You're awesome. And I breezed through customs with a look on my face that declared that I had absolutely nothing to declare. I went to the escalator that I knew would take me to the train that went into the center of the city, and I ran up it. I got there to the platform fast, so fast that when I arrived, I realized that I hadn't texted home to say that I'd landed. I had to act quickly. There was no time to type. I got my cell phone out of my pocket. I pressed that microphone thing at the front, and I spoke into it. Landed Stockholm, I said, and pressed send. And it was then, and I don't know who it was, and I don't think it was on purpose, that someone came up behind me and hit my elbow and knocked my cell phone up and out of my hand and onto the tracks. I stepped forward, and I saw it lying there. And then the train came into the station. I actually heard it crunch. When the doors opened, I got on. I mean, what else was I going to do? And as I sat down, I realized that it wasn't just the name of my hotel that was on my phone. It was everything about my hotel. I looked up at the subway map to see if there was something that I could puzzle out, anything that jogged my memory. Now, there may be some cities, there may be some countries in the world where you can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Sweden is not one of them. There were subway stops named Karlström and Marströmningen. There's one that was just called Ugg.
Exactly.
Full disclosure, none of those are actual names of actual subway stops. It was like being lost in an IKEA, and not just because there was no exit sign in sight. And as I sat there, I realized that I'm just going to consult my notes for a second. Let's see where we're going now. I got lost in the speech there. I sat down. I must have had a look of panic on my face because there was this guy who was sitting across the train from me. He was completely bald, but as if to make up for his baldness, he had a large curling mustache. He asked me if I was all right. I'm lost, I told him, as if it was my name. And in a way, it was. That was who I was right then. And as I said it, I realized how strange that felt. And not just strange, how implausible, how impossible it felt. It was not just the kind of thing that didn't happen often. It was the kind of thing that could never happen. But of course it could. I'd been lost before. As a student at the University of Toronto in the 1990s, I had no idea which way was up, much less north. And thinking of myself as a student made me think of my students. Now, I've been taking students abroad here at Colorado College for about 20 years. I've taken students to London. I've taken them to Toronto, to Guangzhou. I've taken them to Paris. In the spring, I'm taking them to Melbourne. And every time I do, I say to them more or less the same thing. Look around. Listen. Be where you are. For a lot of the time, or some of the time, they had no choice but to do exactly that. It used to be that when you take students abroad, they had to leave their data plans and with it, their devices behind. But all of that changed around 8 or 9 years ago. Now, their data plans go everywhere, and so their cell phones go with them. And so when they get off the plane, they're on the devices right away, maybe even more so than when they are at home because they are surrounded by the unfamiliar. It's a change that I've noticed in them, but it's also a change that I've noticed in myself. Now, it used to be when I would take students anywhere, when I had to take them to any site, I would walk and then re-walk and then re-walk again the route. And let me tell you, you don't know what it's like to be slightly turned around until you've had to ask for directions with 15 undergraduates behind you saying, are we there? What's going on? Who's driving the ship? Now I don't have to do any of that. Now my phone comes with me, and so I look at it instead of around. Not that day on that subway in Stockholm. That day, I had no idea where I was or where I was going, which is probably why that guy sitting across from me, you know, the bald guy with the amazing mustache, he was wearing one of these massive winter coats, the kind of huge things that everybody wears when they live in one of those cities where you can just drive to the Arctic Circle. He introduced himself. I'm Shell, he said, and he spelled it for me. K-J-E-L-L. In Swedish, she said, KJ makes a sound. I had no idea what to do with that information. So instead, I told him what was going on. I had no idea about anything about what I was supposed to be doing in Sweden. I said I'd lost my cell phone. What about your laptop, he said. I said, I'm only here for a week. I just brought a backpack. You're amazing, he said. That's amazing. And then he made the very sensible suggestion that we should go to an internet cafe where I could access my email and find out what I needed to find out. And as it happened, he knows the most amazing internet cafe. I thought it was a good idea, but I will admit I was a little skeptical. Because how amazing can even the most amazing internet cafe be? I mean, do they even still exist? Sure enough, a few minutes later, there we were. It was the most amazing internet cafe. There were these long white tables. There were computers all over the place. There were these cylindrical chairs, which I'm pretty sure are going to be the way in which all chairs are going to be in the very near future. You could order anything, tea, coffee, or what he ordered for us, which was herring and schnapps. Schnapps, I said, no, schnapps is German. You're in Sweden. While we waited for it to arrive, I checked my email, and in approximately 8.23 seconds, I had all the information that I needed. And then the herring and schnapps showed up. And schnapps turns out to be this amazing flavored vodka. And he showed me how you take a little bite of the herring and a little sip of the schnapps, and you hold them both together in your mouth so that those flavors collide and transform into something rich and strange and magical and uniquely Swedish. We had one, then we had another. We may have had another. And as we sat there, we talked about it all. We talked about his life. We talked about his city. We talked about his kids. And I did the same. I talked about Colorado College. I talked about what I was doing there. And that moment changed the way I teach. It also changed me. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that you go to Stockholm and hurl your cell phone in front of a subway. If, on the other hand, you've been listening to me talk, listening to the story and thought, maybe I'll try that, I say, go for it. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know when you're going to find out. Don't do that. But do something. For all of us who are involved in any way, in any kind of study abroad program, incorporate into your classes some moment when your students leave their devices and their data plans at home along with their home countries. To all of us, to parents, to children, incorporate into your time away, your time abroad, anywhere, some moment, some agreed upon moment, clearly defined, of course, in which you all agree to shut off your devices. Now, I'm not saying no maps. What I am saying is no Google Maps, no Apple Maps. Maps, for sure. Go on a quest with a map, but don't map quest it. See what you see when you look around when you look up instead of down. See what you say to each other when you have no choice but to talk to each other. And to all of us, let's recover the lost art of getting lost. Let's get lost, because if there's one thing that being a professor here for the last, 20 or so years has taught me, is that those moments of learning that stick to us most profoundly, those moments that transform us, are the moments where we're willing to go somewhere gladly beyond anything we might be looking for, gladly beyond any Google map. Thank you.